hung out with the girls. Always hung out with the girls. Always hung out with the girls. The girls, they accepted me.
Hello and welcome to the Fluid Voice. I am Ozma In The Dark as usual, and I am here with Joey. How are you doing?
I am doing okay.
Okay. Oh,
still using they them pronouns.
Yeah, I had just realized I'd forgotten to mention my utilization of she they pronouns for the she they pronouns for the purposes of I guess having a birthday I am having a day of my birth. It is the day in which I was born. Yeah, so I figured in terms of topics, the left and when are borders appropriate or whatever is the general gist of things. First I want to bring up the retooling. I think we're gonna do like a short something, or talk about something's going to be brought up next week, but after that there's going to be retooling for X unknown period of time, in which I will take less charge. Significantly less charge is the general current thought process. We'll have more information in a week. Yes. Brain. I can brain. Yeah, so the subject about the left and boundaries, borders, whatever, comes up a lot with regards to stuff, because there's generally, you hear it a lot with regards to, you know, how the left needs to be more unified or whatnot, but also some of the people saying that are dicks. Pardon my language. Maybe, I don't know. Joey, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I am in agreement on the whole their dicks thing.
Yeah, because like, okay, so there does need to be more unity, but like the people need to know that you're fighting for, or that they are fighting for you, if you're gonna work with someone. So like, obviously just saying, hey, we should just work together cause I said so, is not like an argument. I mean, it is an argument, but it's a bad one.
If it worked that easily, it would have already been done by now. But
Yeah.
It just doesn't work that easily. Like, that's one of the problems with a lot of times with white saviorism, is you'll get somebody who hasn't been involved in social justice and the fight to get human rights in their whole lives, and they get to a point where oh, I want to get involved, but then when they get involved, they just try to walk in and take over, thinking they know what to do. We just need a little bit extra unity and some kumbaya. And you get somebody who comes walking in clueless. Like, if it were just that simple, it would have already been done.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's also forces that work against things, because there are sometimes concerted efforts to increase division or whatnot.
Oh, there's definitely those factions too. And they're not even necessarily like an infiltrative sort of disruption, though there is that. There's infiltrative sort of disruption where these were disruptors specifically sent by, usually government entities to literally sow discord and disruption. So there's usually that in any leftist movement as well.
Yeah. Not, I would say not only government agencies, but also right-wing organizations, because there's a lot of right-wing.
And then there's just people who don't know how to get along.
Yeah. Isaiah brings up, from what I've seen, the left seems to want people who agrees with them 110%, but then bashes people of different opinions. There are those leftists too, but I think the majority, it's more complicated, because it's not like a simple thing. Because then it would be a simpler solution. But like, sometimes that argument gets used to justify genuinely bad behavior or whatnot. Like,
yeah, it's the spectrum. It's not like, we're talking about something that doesn't have like really delineations so much as it has like overlapping zones and spectrum.
Yeah, because there are people on the left who will be like, oh, you don't want to have revolution this way. You're doing your idea of revolution is wrong, and therefore I hate you type thing. And that's awful.
Right, but then there's honest critique. Like, what's your strategy? Like, what are we how are we going about this? What kind of safe space can we actually make? And do we need it to be a safe space? How safe do we need it to be? Like,
well, yes, there's that, but I mean, there's also like genuine stuff of like, I don't know. It's hard to trust someone who utilizes, let's say, a tactical use of the N-word. A white guy who does a tactical use of, quote unquote, tactical use of the N-word, or is far too comfortable with the N-word, and it's just like, I don't know if you're fighting for people who are not white. Especially if they double down on that. But like, it's I mean, that's a general criticism, but also just intersectionality is important or whatever, and I can't think in terms of words. When people get together. What Martin Luther King Jr. was fighting for. I don't know why I can't brain. Inclusion, something along those lines. It's often said as a separate. It's a different thing than because there's assimilation, which is bad and usually leads to hierarchies and eventually things moving back towards white supremacist attitudes. And then there is integration. There we go. Oh my god. Sorry about that.
Sorry, I couldn't help either. I was like sitting here going, I'm not sure what you're even what
yeah,
word it is
integration versus assimilation. Like it's a genuine kind of vital thing for goals or whatnot, because those will have like different results. Similar thing to, okay, there's a significant difference between violent revolution and less violent revolution. I don't want to say non-violent revolution is completely possible, but like, especially because violence can be relatively broad as a term, but like, I can
especially
see
when it's being applied to the ownership of property, because they apply that term a lot to somebody broke out a window and burnt something, and it's a thing that the people burnt, but they use that as an example for evidence of violence.
Yes. But like, in terms of, I can understand arguments with those, but it's like, oh, I want, socialism. Oh, I want, anarchistic, I want anarchistic socialism. I want social democracy. Cool. We can work together still for a lot of issues, even if the end result is not the same, because you can still move forward towards genuine things or whatever. Even if you don't agree on everything, there should be a lot that you agree on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
But like, yeah, there's still difference. And also there's a conversation happening in chat. Those people are,
Kama Sutra scholars biting everybody within range again.
ouch. The okay, I can see some of the class things. I don't know. I don't think anything there is anything I can bring in easily to the general topic. But I guess also there's a difference between working together and, yeah, it really depends on what your goals, because people dogpile people as well, and things get complicated when you're talking about arguments.
I honestly don't think that we need the kind. There's a kind of unity that we need, and there's a kind of unity that I think you need for different purposes. When it comes to making community with each other, that's a different level of unity that you need it's a different kind of unity that you need than, say, everybody moving towards the goalposts being social justice. You know, those are two different, very different kinds of unity that we're talking about in those two different cases, because one, you need it to build an actual community with each other. That's a different kind of unity that you need, as opposed to everybody moving in the same direction towards a common goal like social justice. Like, let's say, voting rights, for example.
Yes, I mean, to be fair, I think I feel like one of the easiest ways to end up in a community, though, is to have some amount of common goal. Like, it was very easy to feel like I was a part of community when I was the one time I actually did on the ground work or whatnot with regards to immigration rights. So I think I try to learn from experiences. I think having that is helpful, but and also communities can work with other communities for other social justice things that some members might also care about. I think. Because I mean, I guess I am really bad at making community, I feel like. I mean, I mean, there's some community here, but I feel like I leech
Making
half of
community is hard. It's work, and it doesn't come easy. And I think that being neurodivergent actually makes that work harder because it's more difficult to socialize. I think making community with other neurodivergent people is probably easier than making community with allistics.
Yes. But also I feel like I leech most of the people who are in chat now are either from Social Justice Alchemy originally or from Aaron's or the Kama Sutra Scholars streams. So I guess community comes from a lot of different spots and there's a lot of overlap. Maybe I just wanted to beat myself up there on some level. Yeah, this is a position I will walk back my saying that the community is largely leached from Social Justice Alchemy and the Kama Sutra Scholar. I mean, that's not fair. Also, Context French has been here since the start, so and yeah, not from either of those two streams. Yeah, Context Wrench, I see you also mentioned that in chat. Been causing the trouble the whole time before either of those two shows. Yes. But yeah, yeah, I mean there are some there is this is partially based off of what Isaiah brought up earlier in chat, but or far earlier in chat, but it just crossed my mind again in terms of getting people to work together. There are white people who like to take over or try to take over spaces. I think it might be a privilege thing. It's just kind of an impression I get because it is easy to feel it's sort of
there's a subliminal conditioning.
Yeah, and an attitude that everything can be used as a part of of what you want to do or whatnot. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
You see that a lot in movies or whatever. There's a lot of cultural appropriation feels almost too nice to describe it that way. Because oftentimes it's just no understanding of the culture or an active choice to avoid, trying to make it real to the actual culture. That reminds me of Clint Eastwood film. The one that was in Minnesota. Now I'm forced to look that up. And also, since I also saw your statement, Isaiah, I say that's specific. That's a specific subset of feminism. That's a very white feminism specific to it, like, I think first and second wave feminism are more likely to have elements of the particular brand of white feminism that does kind of paint all men as evil. Because there are elements of that. It's just not the majority of feminism.
Right.
But it is part of the reason for TERFs. Because TERFs tend to play on that sort of attitude of like absolutes and whatnot.
Yeah, they absolutely do.
Yeah, Gran Torino was what I was thinking of. I'll let you answer the other thing Isaiah asked. Since my brain is not good for being helpful with that.
The issue of Me Too and sexism. I noticed some members of the feminist community wanting to cast all men in a negative light. I take issue with that because not all men are bad. Also, how do we fight sexism when it's levied against another group? You fight it the same way you fight the patriarchy. You just set the best example that you can. You not only talk your talk, you walk your walk. And you make sure that those bad actors aren't setting the example. But at the same time, you're not falling for their bullshit either.
Yeah, and there's also like it's one of those things where things get more complicated with race, because there are white women tiers or whatnot, which do factor in because men who aren't white, so like there are different stereotypes, and they're usually the bad elements or whatever, with regards to like masculinity. So black men are more likely to be considered violent, just like a bunch of bad stuff associated, or potentially bad stuff associated with men, get dumped into black men or Asian men or indigenous men, or like all sorts of things where it's like it's not the same standard. Like,
yeah, there's stereotypes that also factor in.
Yeah, so like the only people who are getting the full power of the patriarchy are white men.
Right.
No one else. White women have some privileges if they act into the patriarchal standards. So if white women,
they have to be pick-me women.
Yeah, but like also if they're submissive and act helpless, white women have the white women tiers power.
Yeah. White women tears power is nothing to freaking scoff at, man. That shit is serious.
So
I've
now
spent
white women
more than
tears,
one time.
white women tears doesn't really help. White men still have a defense against white women tears. But if you're not white, well, white women tears can bypass a lot of other stuff and help play into other just assumptions that relate to masculinity or femininity. And if you don't fall too much into either of those, then you are a abomination if we're talking about society. Yeah, Kama Sutra scholar brings up white men get excused for their misogyny, black men are angry, dangerous, etc. Yes.
Yep.
Ableism also factors in. If you're any sort of, if you happen to be some sort of neurodivergence that's not favored, you also don't necessarily, that also takes away your patriarchal privilege card, because it is all essentially based around white supremacy. And so that kind of gives being white, or at the very least being perceived as white, but also helps if you are white. You get privileges.
Yep, at the very least, act white. speak white. They call it code switching. That's a term I didn't know when I was younger, but that's a definite term. When I'm back home on my reservation, when I'm talking to people from my reservation, I get an accent. I sound more like I live on the res. And it just happens that way. And then when I'm not talking to somebody from the res, or I'm not anywhere near the res, the farther I am away from it, the less I speak with that accent. So like speaking right now, I sound more like I have been from Southern California, not the res. But when I'm on the res or I'm talking to somebody from the res, then I'll pick up the accent again. Because I do have the potential for having that accent.
That makes sense. Definitely not something I've ever needed to worry about. Much like so many things. I've never had to have like a talk with regards to, well, to be fair, I don't have a driver's license. I only have a permit, so, but like either way, there's no way I would have like some talk about how to deal with police or whatever, because that's never been something I've had to worry about, because I'm blindingly white. There's just so much. I mean, definitely there are things. There are definitely things I have to worry about now that I didn't have to before. I am more wary of certain men, who I don't know, type thing. Where I'm like, are they doing something creepy? Are they going to do something creepy? I don't like the vibes. That doesn't mean they're bad people or whatnot. It's just one of those things where I have to be.
You just have to be extra careful, and that's just it. Comes with femininity in any way, shape, or form. As soon as you are clocked as being other than male, then boom, you're in a new category, and you're potentially a form of prey for certain predators. So you have to be more cognizant. Is that an actual predator, or is that a harmless enough person?
Yeah. Yeah. But like, at the same time, discrimination can also play into that, because like ableism can factor into who is perceived as dangerous. Racism could factor into who is perceived as dangerous, type thing. Which I am hopefully not bad at being able to suss out, to avoid falling into those tropes. I mean, to be fair, I am used to socially awkward people. And not just because I am myself socially awkward sometimes. I guess less so now. But, yes.
I grew up with them separating us out as gifted kids, quote unquote, gifted. They separated us out, and by the time I hit middle school and high school, they were even out in special buildings with special ed kids. We were considered the same. And so, like, they separated us out. And when you get separated out like that, you become a target. And the only thing that saved me from bullies is I was an abnormally large child and I had athletic ability and I could scrap. And so, because I could fight and I didn't hesitate to do so if I needed to, it's the only reason the bullies pretty much stayed off of my back. But there were people that I had that I walked home from school every day just to keep the bullies away from them because they were quote unquote abnormal.
Hmm. Yeah, I only got in one fight at school or whatnot, and then like a football player kind of had my back that for that class. But I don't know, everything, the whole situation was its own mess, because I feel like there were way less bullies in people of my grade. A lot of the bullies were like the grade above. I mean, that could just be a twisted perception on my part. Shit. Do 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 do. So how about that weather? Yep. Weather sure is good. Definitely. Hopefully plan on getting that bank account this month, and then maybe I can have actual Zoom subscription. Hi, Phoenix. Yeah, I got cut off, but whatever. Back to the topic at hand. Because obviously inclusivity is important for the purpose of inclusivity is important for actually building a movement and getting large amounts of people on your side. And I guess undoing white supremacist values seems to be the thing people have difficulty with. I know that's a bit broad, but because obviously there's elements of control that have been
well, in the
conditioned into
culture
people.
itself, it concentrates on the individual so much, and it's really a hyper individualization that people are programmed with. You know, that idea of, you know, I'm in this struggle, and they think of the struggle as something that they are in exclusively, rather than there are literally millions of people struggling. And that struggle is common because of certain choices that are being made by the people who are in charge. And if you organize the people who are struggling, then you can actually get something done, so they are not struggling as hard anymore. But getting people to drop their personal guards, because there's an openness that you have to come at organization with, like, to be organized into this, like, let's say, for example, a union. Let's say a union like the Teamsters or something are trying to organize your workers group. To join this union, you have to see on a personal level the value in doing so. Otherwise, there's no point in you joining. And there's a lot of Americans that don't join unions because they don't get it. They don't see the advantage of being in a group that's willing to fight for you. Because when you're in a group that's willing to fight for you, you may not even have to do the fighting on your own. You can be like, you know what, this time I'm going to sit it out, but you don't have to worry about the whole movement falling apart just because you didn't keep going. You know, that's the advantage of having that unity, the community to fight for you. On your off days, you can sit back, you can do nothing, and you can let them fight for you. Like, there's an advantage to that. But trying to get somebody who's been programmed that hyper individualization is something commendable, you're fighting culture. And that's a really, really difficult fight.
Yeah, and it probably doesn't help that some of those elements have been around since, or have been kind of baked into the founding of this country, the individualism. At least to some degree. Or maybe it's just the history books. Regardless, it's definitely very much in there. It's very easy to be like, to beat yourself up if you can't do it, versus or beat yourself up for asking for help, because it's very much, you're told that you should ask for help if you need it, but also you should do everything you can to try to do it on your own. Tends to be the message. And so that just dissuades people from even asking for help. And then on top of that, there's the patriarchal elements of just basically control has been tacked onto masculinity. So men especially are doubly told not to organize. because to do so would be, I mean, it wouldn't actually be unmanly, but it's very much like you've given up your vital element of control, and since we've tacked on you being in control of stuff with being important to masculinity, even though it's just sort of a superficial thing that they've just tacked on because like control equals masculinity and lack of control equals femininity is just an absurd thing, because people can have a lack of control sometimes and can be in control other times. In fact, the military is founded on a majority of soldiers not being in control because they take orders from the person above them. So very clearly, it doesn't make sense for control to be tacked on to masculinity as well. I just feel like it's still an extra factor to try to or that can dissuade men from organizing. I don't know if that's just my thought process.
No, that makes sense too. That's definitely a factor. Because to admit that you need organization is to already admit a weakness. Like you can't do it on your own. And so therefore this is some kind of weakness rather than, you know what, it's actually a weakness to look at it the opposite. Like it's a weakness to try to go it alone when you've got literally the support of billions of your species that could potentially be in community with you. Like there's a power, or we should be instilling the kind of values that we recognize that there is a power in having that many human beings potentially on your side. Like if you're quote unquote living good, you know, where your social contract is being fulfilled with everybody around you, you're giving and taking, you're setting good boundaries, you're living in your best healthy way. Like there should be a power in people supporting you for being that person. Or we should, I think that we should start looking at it that way, that there's a power in having that many people have your back.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the divisions are there, and we've got things like, you know, gender, race, ability, all kinds of different things that come in the way of that.
Yeah. And back to the power of like organizing, I think something that I won't ever forget was something I learned in traditional Japanese spearmanship. It was essentially 3 amateurs versus someone who knew way more than us about spearmanship, but 3 amateurs can take down an expert in spearmanship so long as they're all willing to sacrifice themselves for a cause type thing. Like, if you're willing to fight for each other and even risk losing stuff for each other, for the greater good of a community, then you have a lot of power.
Yeah, that's true.
And it doesn't matter. Well, I mean, it does matter how many expert people are against you, but like, it does. Generally, it's never anywhere near the number. Like, numbers make a huge difference. Also for motivation, like, if the military, if like 100,000 people in America rose up and protested at the same time or whatnot, like, the government, even if it was like completely illegal in the way it was done, the government's not going to be motivated to kill 100,000 Americans. Or even if the government ordered it, the soldiers aren't necessarily going to want to kill 100,000 Americans. Like, if you get a number big enough, then it gets... people are a lot more likely to be like, wait, are we the bad guys if they try to do something that would be unethical in most people's eyes?
I'd like to think so.
Well, I'm trying to think, because, like, wasn't that part of how the Soviet Union was taken down? I realize it's ended up now and it's like an kind of gone fascist or whatnot. But like, I could swear the original protests, the military didn't want to hurt the people protesting type thing, because it's just too big a number. Like, at some point it's just, yeah.
Well, at some point, it's the majority of your country, and you've got a decision to make. Either you go along with the majority of your country who's saying that, you know, something's wrong collectively, or you side with your government, which could be in the minority and therefore in a very dangerous position. Like, if you're a soldier and you're stuck in that particular situation, you could be gambling with your own safety by siding with the government if enough people are that upset.
Well, yeah, but like, also, I don't think people want... I realize there's a lot of nationalism, nationalistic conditioning, but I don't think people want to destroy the country in an attempt to save the country. I think that you kind of hit like a not good mental spot. Isaiah, I'm disagreeing with you here. So, like, the Soviet Union has always been authoritarian. Fascist is a specific term. Fascism generally needs to be more capitalistic. But yeah, the Soviet Union has always been authoritarian. That is true. It's a nitpick point, but I get the reasoning. Yeah, it's not a desired solution for most socialists because it's authoritarian, and authoritarian is kind of antithetical to socialism because it's not really for the people. You know. Um, but shit, where is it going? Oh, that's the word you're looking for, authoritarianism. Yeah, I get that. Uh, but yeah, in terms of, I think a lot of times also in terms of mistakes and coming back from mistakes, because I don't think back to the ways in which the left gets split up sometimes, because like I think people can come back from mistakes, but I think it takes a lot of work, and I don't think people should be forced to accept apologies, especially if it's something that impacts them on some level. Like if someone argues for genocide of people like you type thing, and you might not like that person, might argue that their reasoning is bad. If they, let's say, argue that they should try to prevent autism from occurring in anyone, that is kind of at its core its own fun flavor of genocide.
Yeah, that's eugenics.
Yeah. But if someone argues strongly for that, I can understand never fully being sure if they won't argue for, like,
there is some truth to the phrase that there is no second chance for a first impression. And if on your first impression with somebody, the first time that you really pay attention to what they're saying something like genocide this, eugenics that, then even if they learn and learn better, that doesn't mean that you can bring yourself to a position where you can just forgive and forget. And you shouldn't have to.
Well, you shouldn't have to, but like I do think it is, I think most people, there are some people who it's very clear that they have learned. And I think it generally is clear when they argue against eugenics, but also understand why eugenics is bad and like have a clear saying of why it's bad, and also if they stop arguing for eugenics in anything and don't just like switch over to a new topic, like, oh yeah, eugenics of autistic people is bad, but then again, you know, we should do eugenics of I don't know, just name a disability. Insert disability here.
Right, like Down syndrome we should do something about, but
it gets, yeah, it just very much spills into the idea that your worthiness as a human being relates to how much you can produce for society. That hierarchy, that awful hierarchy.
Yeah, and that's one that is common across races, across genders. That seems to be one that whole countries and cultures have a difficult time with. They can be very progressive sorts of countries and cultures. They can be seemingly doing a good job in many different aspects and many different ways for their people. And then you get to the whole ableist part and you're realizing, oh my God, they're still so bad at the ableism thing.
Yeah, you get that with leftists too. That is one thing that also just does not help. There are leftists who argue that people should get stuff based off of how much work they put into getting stuff done. Sort of something closer to I'm bad with terms at the moment today. The thing where you get paid like the amount based off the work you do, not based off of other privileges. The thing capitalism wishes it was. Or people wish capitalism is, or whatever, or convince themselves capitalism in some way you are paid based off of the quality of your work. I can't think in terms of terms. The thing some elements of the military actually is. Regardless, yeah, it's still problematic because everyone's gonna have different needs and different amounts of wants or whatnot, regardless of what they can do or can't do, and that shouldn't be a factor in terms of basic needs or whatever. That shouldn't work against you getting your needs type thing, or make it so you're too much of a people need some amount of wants, and shouldn't be prevented from having like any of their wants because they can't get enough work done. If that makes sense. If anything I said that made sense. I kind of rambled a little.
It made sense.
Looking up the word. Damn it. Okay, I'm not gonna find it. I tried to look once and then very very clearly can't, but yeah, and I guess a lot of that relates to the ableist end of, hey, is this person actually fighting for arguing that my rights should be fought for? Oh no, they're not. They're arguing for people outside of people like me. Well, it's going to be hard for me to support that. Um, so, I mean, I guess I hmm, people need to learn how to undo white supremacist attitudes and ableism. Everyone ends up disabled on a long enough timeline. Either end up disabled or dead.
Yep.
Well, I mean, eventually you end up dead in a long enough thing after you end up disabled, but like, yeah. Um, and yes, context wrench, civil rights are not pie. Everyone can share.
Exactly. In fact, the more the merrier.
Yeah. I think that one's nice. Also, the general the false scarcity one with the rich person taking the majority of the cookies and like handing two to one person and one to another person, saying the person with one cookie is gonna try to take your like couple of cookies while the rich person has like 100 cookies. See, yeah, false scarcity doesn't help. Makes people scared that there is less than there is. I mean, there is still there is actual scarcity as well, like clean water or whatnot. Um, which now all I can think about is global warming.
Yeah, I'm lucky. Was talking about that with my bestie the other day, that how lucky we are that we live in an area where you can turn on the tap and literally drink the water right out of the tap. It's perfectly clean, good for you, has plenty of minerals in it. In fact, so much so that you actually end up with the opposite problem. You usually end up with a lot of mineral deposits, but it's good artesian water.
Uh,
And we're
well,
lucky because there's so many places that have shitty water, if they have
uh,
any.
wait, are you saying that Flint, Michigan still has a water problem?
Among other places, yes.
Yeah, yeah, it's not, the situation's not great. It's easy to get overwhelmed, but like at the same time, if you just find one group or whatever that you can help out even a little, this is something that's on the potential things I might want to do in the future, but might not do it in the future. But hopefully I do eventually do in the future, which is I want to just like make a list of organizations with regards to everything. So if you care about immigration rights, here's like a million different organizations so people can find, you know, something that they can, that some organization that they can work with. uh you know, civil rights of various sorts. I don't know. a lot of stuff, because I think just it's easy to just be like not aware of organizations that already exist, even in your own state or whatnot, that there is potential for you to work with them and people can help each other out. Um, and I lost my train of thought again.
Yeah.
I'm surprisingly tired today.
Well, you've had a big birthday day.
I have had a big birthday day. I was walking around the mall for hours. We played at the arcade in the mall. And also saw Toucan. And also I got free food because it was my birthday. And a free hot chocolate. I'm also poor. That also is a factor in terms of I'm not fighting against that. Yeah. But yeah, I guess in terms of like, when do you think barriers are put up too soon or whatnot, or people are like pushed away too easily from leftist groups?
That's a good question. I think that people are pushed away too soon when they come in too forcefully. I think that like it takes a certain kind of person, but there is definitely a way that you can get through to even some of the most bigoted people on this freaking planet. Like, what springs to mind is that black man in the South, I think it was Tennessee, who like got through to a bunch of white supremacists in his area. And they were like members of the KKK even. And he managed to get through to them. And he like, I think he wrote a book about it, or maybe he is writing a book. And I just read this story about it. But it takes a certain kind of person, but you can do it. There's a way. I think that those certain kinds of people, just like it takes all kinds, the phrase "it takes all kinds," it really does take literally all kinds of people. And one of the best jobs for a person who can get along with people that they are completely at odds with, and it shouldn't make sense that they even get along, but they manage to be able to, that there's a space for them to get the beginnings of people who are so hyper individualistic that they are having a difficult time even integrating into a group or organization. Like, I think that there's a place for people who are, I guess those types of people are extra extroverted, which is something that's difficult for me to identify with because I am so introverted. But there's definitely the kind of outgoing person who can get along with people like that and get past that and help them to get rid of some of the programming that they've got, because it really is just programming. It's the way that we're all brought up. We can change it. You just have to get in there and realize A, what needs changing, and B, how to do the changes. But it is a matter of programming.
I suppose C, you have to have a reason to watch change.
Yeah, this is also true.
Although sometimes change happens before people realize it. Because there is also the factor of I want to say visibility, but like essentially if like if I had exposure, when people are exposed to different people, it becomes a lot harder to on some level follow through with the social conditioning. So that's a factor of sorts. And Zoom's about to die.
I was going to say, we've got less than a minute.
Yeah, I put up Flake prematurely. Right. I'm like, I don't want to end it early because at the same time, oh. I see YouTube problems that I probably can't brain at the moment. Da, 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 da. Okay. Problem with the last social movements in this country, a lot of complaint, but no interaction beyond that. Depends on the social movement. But yeah, there are definitely some social movements like that with complaining but no interaction beyond that. I mean, the thing is, things get complicated because there's stuff that's happening online and there's stuff that's happening outside the online space, and those are not the sorts of things that's going on. Sometimes it's the same, sometimes it's not.
I think it also depends on the media that you're consuming too. So like if you're on what is it called now? The platform
X?
formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah, X.
X. When you're on X, it's there's a lot of animosity. Like there just is for some reason all over that platform. There's a lot of animosity. And when you're in that sort of quote unquote environment, it's so difficult to try to remember that not everybody is like that. Not everybody is trying to get under your skin. Not everybody is, not everybody is a big old freaking bigot.
Yes. I will say, Isaiah, about, because Isaiah brought up, with those same white people who march, make friends with the black people they march with. So there's, actually, I've got my notes, because like so when it comes to organizing, there's generally so there's like leaders within an organization, which is like a small circle. Then there's the general base, the people who are with the organization, and then the crowd. And sometimes the people who march are just people in the crowd, people who decided to go along with the marching, but don't necessarily, they might only superficially care about the values that the general base of the organization are promoting. So like the people in the crowd, even if they march with like Black Lives Matter for instance, they might not fully commit to anti-racist attitudes that the general base of Black Lives Matter. And leaders is a vague thing, because even if there's not like a hierarchy, leaders is just a general way of describing, the people who do the organizing behind the scenes. Because with regards to a lot of organizations and just organizing in general, there are there's a ton of stuff that happens, and then there is like an actual march or a protest or whatnot. Things don't usually happen intuitively. Sometimes they can, but like if we're talking about organizing that lasts a long time and is able to have consistent impact, it starts to get more complicated or whatnot. Or there's just the march is just like a small part of it, but like still really important or whatever. Because like there's the lawyers also an important part of protest marches, so people can not end up staying in jail or whatnot, and potentially get their records expunged, the criminal record expunged, just because there's so many laws that can be used to try to work against protesting, and just a lot more that I don't fully understand. It's
Yeah, you'd think that as a nation, considering the start of the nation and how it was basically a riot, you'd think that we would work harder to protect our rights to basically riot.
yeah. I mean, there was a lot of behind the scenes aspect to the revolution as well. Obviously, Thomas Paine being like one of the people who helped promote it as a revolution or whatnot, and do some other really major stuff to make sure things got going. And then Thomas Paine was kicked out of America to France or whatever.
At the very least, you'd think we'd work harder to protect our First Amendment rights. You hear so much talk about the Second Amendment, and I'm just like, what is the point of having the Second Amendment if you're not even going to protect the First Amendment?
And also, not to pick not look, Isaiah is saying a lot of very things that are making me think, and yeah, when it's white people it's a revolution, when it's others it's a riot. That sounds about right on some level. That feels true. I don't have facts for that, but like that feels true.
Yeah, no shit, huh?
Either that or it's an insurrection if it's not white people. Or a violent overthrow. That's another fun one that gets used. I mean, I guess I guess actually violent overthrow is more likely to apply to everyone. Whatever. But yeah, and to be fair, I think there is. I know you brought up differences with regards to. Apparently, my brain is shutting off again. Joe, you brought up differences between like building a community and fighting for a common goal, and I mean, there are also things I agree with regards to that, because there you can argue about certain aspects for the long-term goal for society, especially. So I'm already walking back whatever it was I said earlier in the episode. Because apparently that's how my brain is working. Yeah, bringing people, I guess more accurately, it's bringing people together. You can bring people together for a specific goal, but like you can also argue about other goals and still have a community, so long as people aren't going to be like not caring about the human rights of other people in the group. Right? Maybe?
That sounds right.
Also, I just realized we're over an hour and a half in. So it's wrapping up time, technically. Any last thoughts? I think I've used up my brain.
No, I haven't. Haven't any.
Okay.
I think we pretty much said that there was to say.
Where can people find you? Is there anything you want to promote?
Easiest to find me on Facebook at Joey Takstra Hushte. Good luck spelling it. I am obviously on YouTube as the Indigenous Heretic. I forget my Blue Sky handle, or I'd give that out too, but I can't remember it right now.
I wish I had a Blue Sky handle. I'm pretty sure I'm on that list. No, I know I'm on that list. Whatever. Brain. Sorry. I shouldn't have interrupted. This is my bad. Go on.
No, that's pretty much it.
Oh, okay. You can find me Ozma In The Dark anywhere. And Isaiah, we're doing retooling. I'm going to be definitely because I cannot keep running some of the stuff in this in how this show is supposed to run. I cannot keep doing. So there's retooling that, and I think so next week is just going to be, that is largely going to be the topic. I think is just talking about the future thoughts of the show, and then it's just gonna be a quick episode, and then there's gonna be a break for an unknown amount of time, and now I will be doing stuff at some point in the future when I've gotten my life a little bit better together. There are a bunch of videos I have planned on my own channel. And given a long enough time period, I might start streaming on Twitch again, but my list of priorities has changed. I know I want to make videos, but I also need to learn Spanish because I am still working with Never Get in Action, and it's kind of abysmal that I don't speak Spanish. Actually, it's kind of abysmal that I don't speak Spanish despite living in America. Because there's enough Spanish speakers in this country that it's...
Right. I regret not taking, because I took 2 years of French and 1 year of German. I did not take any Spanish, and I regret, it's like one of my big regrets in my life is I didn't take Spanish. I should have taken 2 or 3 years of Spanish, because that would have made more sense.
Yeah, I was being rebellious and chose German for that reason. So I took a bunch of German. I mean, I know my mom knows German, but both my parents also know Spanish and French. My mom is very fluent in French, and my dad is relatively fluent in Spanish. And my dad knows French as well, so it's just I just have not been able to set up the scheduling and make sure to have enough of a priority so that I learn Spanish. I think it's Spanish, French, and then ASL are my top 3 priorities in terms of languages I need to learn. Like, my older sister's marrying someone from France. Like, at this point, it's just silly that I don't know French too. It's, and like I said, oh yeah, also my younger sister speaks French, so like, I'm like, it's me and my younger sister's husband and me, I think, are the only 2 people in the family that don't speak French. And I can only guarantee that I don't speak, like, I know I don't speak French. So that's its whole, a whole complicated situation. And yeah, I also have a document with regards to languages that I just want to learn, and there are a lot of languages there's a lot of languages I want to learn. I just also need to clean my apartment. Also need to do this, that, and the other thing. But yeah, your life matters, your voice matters, and you matter. I feel like I've gotten the order completely wrong, but
I think that's right.
I will take your word for it. Everybody, take care of yourself. Have a wonderful weekend.
Don't forget to hydrate, everyone.
That.